Good evening. See, as it is 7:03, I'd like to call this evening's facilities meeting to order. Let's begin with a roll call. Beginning with
Robin Murphy, present.
Ross Whiting, present.
Mia present. Mia Blitistein present.
Zachary Epps, present. Charles Williams, present.
Dan Schultz present.
Wonderful, thank you. First order of business is to approve the minutes from our May 7th meeting. Do I have a motion?
Second.
Great, wonderful, thank you. It is now time to turn the meeting over to Mr. Holman. Oh, we have to vote on the motion. All those in favor of approving the minutes from May
Aye.
7th, say aye. Thank you. Now I will turn it over to Mr. Holman. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. How's it going? As a team dedicated to promoting sustainability and environmental conservation for the high school community, we are pleased to have Scott Kelly from the Business Sustainability Architecture to present recommended actions for the high school. Through a comprehensive walkthrough of our school facility, Mr. Kelly and his team have identified several areas where we can make immediate improvements to reduce our environmental impact. These areas, also known as low-hanging fruit, present easily achievable solutions that can have a significant impact on our sustainability efforts. We believe that by implementing the recommendations put forth by Mr. Kelly and revision, we can not only reduce our carbon footprint and decrease our energy consumption, but also inspire our students and staff to become more environmentally conscious individuals. By taking these steps towards sustainability, we can set an example for our community and encourage others to follow suit. We are excited to work alongside Mr. Devine and Mr. Kelly of Revision Sustainability to make our school a more environmentally friendly and sustainable place for all who inhabit it. We look forward to the positive changes that these recommended actions will bring to our school and the broader community. Without further ado, I bring you Scott Kelly.
Okay, hi everyone.
Hello.
I'm Scott, that's Joe, who most of you have met before. Joe unfortunately went on vacation. He misses you all, he was really trying to come, mostly because he didn't want to spend the time with his family. But I said, no, you go. Oh, it is, okay. Well, he'll be listening to it later. And I'm sure he'll make fun of me, but I'm seriously, I'm pinching him tonight. I'm happy to see that we're able to let him go away on his planned vacation. All right, so I have a little quicker here. I'm going to pass around because it's easier to follow the information in this 11 by 17 handout. This is the part, the one page that's really the summary from the report, which was distributed a while ago. I also have PDF copies. Your homework will be in here too. Yeah, I think I didn't print them all because I know you have them. That one page is the insert that's in this report, and then the other part of that was the sustainability and energy assessment from our partners in this project. Practical energy field. Okay, so when we frame things out, first of all, you all have the report, you know about that. Inside of the report, are you mimicking me or are you? Nope, I lost it. You want to hit next? Is this touchscreen?
Yes.
Oh, look at that. The key thing for you is the executive summary where it's got the main bullet points of the significant things that we feel that you should do. There you go. We got a way to work around it. And then, of course, the partner report, which is the one that I referred to as the practical energy solutions. Key thing for tonight is to really look at this matrix. I can't put it up on the screen because you could not read it. So I printed this out the best that I could. And essentially what we're going to do is talk through some major stuff and then a little bit of minor stuff. Every time I do this, you have to press advance. Okay, so as you know, and I think Drew was in speaking to you before, we use these lenses of sustainability to frame out the work that we do. Partially because we know sustainability isn't just about energy efficiency, it's about carbon. It's not just about water, it's about soil health. It's about community, it's about making place, providing education. It's much more holistic than the way that we defined it in 1992. Okay, so I'm gonna hit 7 summary bullet points, one on each category here. First, when we look at place, the couple strategies we think you should move forward with is fostering this connection to place. If you were to look on your spreadsheet, you would see it as SR, Sustainable Recommendation 01. Fostering building users connection to place. And then you'll see a little bit of an implementation strategy summary here. And that's to work with the students and faculty to research, document, and communicate assessment of cultural and historical connections to the site and the place that we now reside. Place that others used to reside before us. Second thing is to establish native plantings in the school. And I want to hold this one up for half a second. You're going to see a lot of things that we recommend actually stack. Because the most cost-effective, most beneficial strategies that stack on each other, you get the best return for your investment. So the second one is establish native plantings at the schools. This is both an educational opportunity. It's a way to restore our natural ecology that's appropriate here. It's a way to build some social equity among both teachers and staff. Second lens of sustainability is about water. Here, we want to concentrate specifically on controlling the stormwater. Schools have such large areas for parking, which concentrates water and then puts it into your local creek very quickly and causes erosion in your neighborhood. So any ways that we can do to address that are going to be good. Our challenge is how do we do that, provide natural ecology, and do a couple other things that are going to come up in a minute. Okay, the next pedal is for energy. This one also has stacked benefits. But we're going to be much more specific when we get into in here. If we complete the ongoing LED lighting upgrades, you will have almost instantaneous cost savings. It's something that is, in my opinion, a no-brainer. Move forward with it as fast as we possibly can without disrupting the classroom. So you plan for it well. You make sure all your parts are on the site before it gets implemented. They're stored somewhere. Break happens, implement the lighting replacement. Right? It's about planning it well. And with COVID, we still have some material supply chain issues. You want to be well prepared for that, which is why I say, make sure your parts are on the site. Nothing's worse than trying to hang on a light fixture and realizing, I'm missing one little thing. Okay, so that's got instantaneous cost savings. With that, considering you got to turn the power off anyway, and you got the right people on the site, anything you can do for lighting controls is an instant win. And that can be as simple as an occupancy sensor switch. Super cost effective. Not really available at Home Depot for this system, but really readily available. Big cost win. It's also an educational opportunity for your kids, for the students. Okay, the other energy thing is the variable drives and pumps on fan motors. Right now, they are constant drive. You turn them on, they're on full. It's like driving your car from 0 to 100 instantly. Not really the best thing for your car. You get better life out of this equipment. You get a pretty good cost benefit. And this is a strategy and energy I think that you should move forward with. I'll pause for questions.
I'm sorry that I don't know what pump and fan motors are in.
You're not supposed to.
Oh.
Anytime you move a fluid, let's say water, heating, cooling, hot water, cold water, you're using a pump to push it. Because it's got to go very far, you've got a very big facility. So that is one place that those pumps can be. I'm trying to think of a good analogy. If I come up with something else good, I'll share it.
So when you're talking about changing some of these drives.
Yep.
We're talking about in vehicles?
Well, no,
Or in build,
It's built, my apologies, yeah. So it's building focused. And maybe the word that we shouldn't call it is drives. Because that makes you think of something else, right?
Yeah.
As Tim was saying, pumps. It's probably the right way to look at it, anytime you're pumping something.
Okay.
And just for reference, even using a pump can often be more efficient than using a fan. You're pumping fluid, which takes about 1/10 of the energy of moving air.
So this is in heating and cooling.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
And there's a little more details. Unfortunately, we get a little too technical sometimes. But anytime if something isn't clear, please ask us to explain it a bit. Okay, so those all those stack, that'll affect your operating costs. It'll affect your maintenance costs. And part of the key is to do strategies like this when it's close to the age of the equipment, when you begin to start to see failure. So your air conditioning system or something like that. It's a little bit about timing. Okay, going on to our next pedal. We talk a little bit about health and happiness. These are softer things. I believe Drew was in talking about the technical strategies about sustainability, which is like material, energy, water, things that are clearly measurable with a meter. And then there's the experiential part of sustainability. Part of that is in the happiness quadrant of sustainability. But here, anything we can do to change the way that students perceive the indoor environment, to relate them back to the exterior environment, will increase their health. It'll increase their test scores. It'll increase their happiness. It'll help build your community. Once again, these things are going to stack. I know this seems soft and a little bit unusual. If we could, we would cut windows at the end of every one of your corridors. That's not cost effective. Plan for that for the next building, not for this. But anytime we can bring art, culture, and nature onto the walls inside of the building, it's a good move. These are often low-cost strategies, but something we're going to try to plan for in the future. Going back to the materials, and I don't like the word toxicity. We got to come up with a better word. So if you have any suggestions, let me know. Looking at materials, we often know that some of the stuff we do is not always friendly to our bodies. We often know that we don't always deal with materials in the best way possible. We throw things away. I'm still trying to figure out where away is, because away doesn't tell you really what's happening to the material. But yeah, that's how we teach our kids. Throw things away. What we should be telling them is, we're sending this to the landfill. We're sending this to the recycling center. We're going to repurpose this piece of equipment. So we have some education to provide. We also would like to recommend doing some tracking, making this something fun and something that involves the children. Just by doing some basic strategies of moving your trash cans together, landfill and recycling would help. We have to be careful it doesn't mess up the flow when students go to leave, but it'll just help them be able to get more material in the recycling, which is what we saw. We saw good recycling numbers, but the landfill numbers, we were surprised a little bit at that. We saw some waste in there that should have easily been in the recycling bin. That also will influence your waste hall numbers a little bit, only a fraction. We could look at composting. If I remember, you don't do composting here yet. Yeah. Could you imagine throwing that kind of waste in the trash can only to feed critters outside of your building? If you took that out and it wasn't in that waste stream, you'd have less money spent for critters. And all of a sudden you could change your pickup times rather than every day or every couple days, once a week. Because that waste can sit there and wait. So you can have big financial wins in following some of these strategies. You can have big wins with the students by having them do a waste audit. I know this sounds crazy, and teach you some tricks. Put them in a hazmat suit, not a real hazmat suit, a fake one, so they feel safe. Have them sort through the waste. Make a game of it. They will learn things that they will never see, but they'll learn here in your school. And every time you make a champion student like that who says, don't put that in the waste stream, put it in recycle, you end up with additional benefits because they'll teach their peers. How many of you were taught recycling from your children? Yeah. Yeah, I was. So it does happen. Okay, that was another strategy. Looking at some equity parts of sustainability. We do think that some accessible circulation paths would be good. Just considering that, doing a deeper dive into accessibility and ADA. And it doesn't mean meeting the law, it means really exceeding, it, making stuff accessible, even for people like me who are hearing impaired. Thank you for turning the air conditioner on, because I actually would not be able to hear a thing that you would say if those air conditioners weren't on. Okay, equitable comfort. Forgot what that strategy was, so let's scan down. Capital improvements as part of the planned air conditioning improvements. The idea is really to make it comfortable enough for children to learn well. I'm not saying they can't sweat a little bit. They can. They're children. They're tougher than we are. But find the right set points where they are attentive and can pay attention. All right, last of all, beauty. That's a very soft part of sustainability, but once again, it's looking at ideas of biophilic design, which is design elements that mimic how we evolved with nature to make us happy, healthy, attentive, focused. Looking at different strategies of how to implement that in the classroom and in the hallway. I know this sounds unusual, but if you get these strategies right, you realize that you get better teacher retention. I'll tell you a quick story. If Joe leaves me, don't ever leave me. I lose between $60,000 and $100,000. My intellectual capital just walked out of the door. I know how important it is to keep teachers. So we do need to have a focus, not just on the students, but on the teachers' health, safety, welfare, connection to the school. Okay, so those are some summary points. All of this is spelled on the matrix. We've been able to assign some cost numbers in the report, the things that are energy related. They are so preliminary. Don't take them as fact. They're guesses. I think in the best case scenario, we move forward with some of those strategies, full light replacement, HVAC issues, variable frequency drives, motion detectors by the door. Move forward enough in the design to get a real hard number on that. And that's the point we have to make a decision of, we're going to do this one, we're going to do this one, we're going to wait on this one. But and basically you need that information to make best educated decisions on where to spend them. Okay, that was fast. And you guys were quiet.
Well, now we have questions, so
Yeah.
don't worry, we'll drag it out.
Okay.
No, thank you so much for this presentation. It was great to be able to, we had a minier version of this knowing it was coming down the line last month, so it's really nice to get to read it. I have a couple questions. You actually already addressed one that I was gonna ask around costs, so question answered. Implementation timeline, right now you have immediate, which is within the next year, and then short term jumps all the way to a 25-year timeline. And I'm wondering, what is the like, that's a large timeline. And some of these things, I don't personally think of that as short term. So I'm wondering, what can we, is there a smaller categorization, or is what you're saying really it is, hey, you need to prioritize this? And
I think we need to get more facts on the numbers. And to do that, we have to go further in the design, and then you can prioritize better. To some extent, we're all a priority. Everything here is a priority. The other stuff we let go.
Okay.
But we could parse out and bracket the timeframes into maybe 5, 10, and further years.
Sure.
Joe, do you have any thoughts about that?
Yeah, I mean, just for context, we were setting those time horizons based on what we understood to be the priorities, the roadmap of, immediately there's the HVAC improvements. So what in short term should be in tandem with that, that's the immediate. But the 25-year horizon, we understand that building may be major renovations or replacement at the end of that window. So what should you be doing that still gets the maximum value within that 25 years? So not saying wait 25 years and implement, but definitely implement it within that window. Because that equipment, we had the example of photovoltaics we were talking about earlier. 20 years, you want to replace them anyway. So if you put them in the first 5 years, you're going to maximize the value of that when you're then ready to replace with a new building. And then everything beyond that, the long term, is looking towards that new facility or the major renovated facility. What can you do today that's going to enhance when you build your facility?
I will defer to you all and administration on whether a more granular timeline would be helpful. But that answer makes a lot of sense. And,
But the roof and the photovoltaics, they need to go together.
right.
And if I recall, your roof is at the end of its life.
Yeah, we're looking at either pairing or it's part of the
Right.
conversation. I did have a question around some things that aren't on this, and one being EV charging, and one topic that's come up, just solar panels, and will that ever make sense? And bear with me, Josh, I know you've already answered this. But what was your perspective on why they wouldn't be in this, or?
EV charger?
Yeah,
I don't know. There's another thing that I think that we should add, supplement, and that would be some kind of leak detection. But I got to talk a little bit more with facilities and work through leak detection for water. I think we're probably going to make a little addendum on that. But in regards to EV chargers, my thought is if you're doing work in a parking lot, you're going to repave it, you're going to even restripe, well, maybe not restripe it, but you're going to repave it. That's the time to do it because you've got to cut into the ground. But it's not two chargers. Because in the next 25 years, a third of your parking lot is going to be EV chargers. We know it's coming. So the point is there, do the work, do the construction work when it's appropriate, just put in conduit. So somebody else can fish another 20 lines, 20 charging stations, not 2 or 4. Joe, do you have any thoughts about, did you guys look at that? I don't need to do that.
So we didn't look specifically at the EV charging. We did talk about electrified bus fleet.
Right.
And, does this become a center? If we did do PV over the parking, does this become the place that you could also charge the bus fleet? I mean, again, these were more
sure.
like,
That
let's stretch kind of ideas. But we didn't look specifically at EV charging beyond that.
We can kind of pick it up and just make sure we cross I's and dotted T's. Or sorry, cross T's and dotted T's.
The other question I had was, and this is on the soft side, but how often should we, right, we're looking at this document as a time frame of, again, immediate, short-term, and long-term of 25 years. How often should we as a district be doing this kind of
5 to
analysis?
7 years.
Every 5 to 7,
Yep.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because
But it also, I mean, it depends on a lot of different variables, such as if you're in year 17, 18, and you're thinking you might have a school replacement or major renovation after 25, you might back off. Right, if you know it's coming. But the key thing is you can't wait to any part of your school, a system is in failure because you can't have a school that doesn't operate. It's not a hospital. You can limp around a little bit, but you got to get it before it's a problem. Because when it's a problem, you're going to pay twice as much and not end up with as good of a solution. As my partner's telling me about my air conditioning right now, because I waited too long to get it serviced.
And then my last is I noticed the line about turf grass, because we are looking at our athletics facilities.
2 reactions.
Yes,
You really need to make sure you look at the toxicity in turf grass. It's an issue already, and we know it's there. But I think we want to make sure we get that right for the next generations in regards to turf grass. And we can help vet those materials and go very, very deep. One of the biggest wins when you stack the benefits that we talked about is to remove as much lawn as possible, bring back native vegetation, use it to manage your stormwater, to educate and engage your students and your staff, and bring more of a biophilic environment. and not have to pay for the mowing.
Mhm.
It's like, we pay a lot to mow something, to make it a monoculture that doesn't support life. And if you can reverse that, not everywhere. Culture isn't really ready for not having some lawn, and that's okay. Don't fight it, work with it. That's probably one of the best things you can do.
My question, thanks for the presentation. Appreciate seeing the inclusion of partners, students. Anybody, if someone from the administration wants to answer, that's fine. First question is for you. I remember the first presentation we heard something along the spectrum of sustainability. Where did we select ourselves on that spectrum? If we recall, I remember that was like one of the first steps. Did we want to be, I don't remember it, but did we want to be all on the right? Where did we decide?
I think that we left it up to you guys where you want to be at. Honestly, and I think, speaking for myself, I think that I decided that we would allow you guys to figure out where you want to be at, what part of the horizon you involved. So, excuse me, like, there's something wrong, but.
Oh, no, I thought that came first, so.
Yeah,
I
well,
just think like we're a little
here's my
far along.
analysis.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure, my apologies. But, I wasn't involved in every step. You're on the ladder of sustainability. So if like, here's the cost-effective green strategies, and here's the deep green, you're here. You're on the way, and I'm sorry. And as we go through, I've done that all in the presentation. And as we go forward, we're gonna look for every opportunity to have you step forward and forward and forward. And it may take a decade to start to get to those deep things, but you can get there. It's not out of reach. And actually, one of the most sustainable things that you are doing, even though it's not something we always hold up, is maintaining an existing structure. Half of your carbon footprint is already spent. So renovating what you have is a really good thing. Just upkeeping it. Of course, my car is a 1990 Volkswagen Bus. And I just maintain it.
I think what Mr. Holman was referring to was that we are at the start point of the process. So as we learn more and figure out what makes sense for us, some things might and some things might not. Like Mrs. Schultz loves the whole solar approach, right? But that may or may not work for us. So it's those variances that will determine how far we actually go. But like LED, we're all in already, right? When I say that, we haven't completely we just did a walkthrough of the mods yesterday. My first question was about LEDs, right? Because I know that that is low-hanging fruit that's going to bring us instant savings. So we'll have them as partners to really guide us through the process as we gauge progress towards how far we want to go as a district, to be quite honest.
Yeah.
This is uncharted territory.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and that's helpful. May have been thinking of it a little more practical. So yeah, it sounds like we want to, aspirationally, we want to get to whatever the end of that horizon was, and we'll
Let's get
Try to
you
win.
2.5 out of 10. And then we're gonna get you a 4.5. Definitive.
There you go. Sure. The next one, actually was already asked, so I'll skip that one, but really it's just how the recommendations around reducing the turf grass and things like that combine with other proposals that we have, and that really say expand. So it's cool. You already.
Expand
you guys
for
already-
play. Right?
For play, yeah.
Right, exactly. How do
What
we
do
do
you,
both?
what's your next sentence? What's your next sentence, I guess?
I don't know yet.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine.
But I'm trying, it's not that you want more turf grass. It's that you want more opportunities to play. And you want to spend less on maintaining what you have, turf grass, and have less of a footprint.
Yeah, and in a practical way, we're getting recommendations to install turf. And so it's really I'm not really asking for a solution right now. It's really just, as we continue, we've got to align those, what might be, contradictory recommendations. To your point, I don't know that we have an answer for that right now, uncharted territory. But that's just something that stands out to me. If we have contradictory recommendations, how do we-
So that's the real question, right?
Yeah.
If I'm hearing you, and I'm just gonna go there. Is the wandering around, are we even moving the right direction with turf? Or is there a possibility to maintain grass and it be as efficient or as effective? Is that kind of where you're dabbling a little?
And
Yeah,
healthy.
essentially, that would be part of the, yes, that would be one of those questions, yeah.
Yeah.
Given yes, all of those things. So it sounds like that's part of what we have. So I'm, part of it is naming it so that when we do come up to those conversations, we have those questions, right?
Or the answers to those.
Or the answer, yeah, right, well, the answers, we know them already.
No, I got you.
Yeah, and I don't want to say, I'm just one board member.
Right.
I don't want to say what I think is the solution either, so.
Right.
In this moment, so I appreciate the direction we're headed. And then I guess lastly, we also have been hearing about, and apologies that I didn't say this before. The capital plan that would list out, probably a more granular timeline when we would actually do things and projects and things like that. So is this a precursor to, I know this really deals with the high school. So is this sort of precursor to the larger plan? Are they or I guess to what extent are these two things connected in terms of, we hear recommendations here, there's probably a larger capital plan that's under development, so just trying to put the pieces together.
We did a large capital investment, 10 years ago, with all other buildings, right? Also brought to high school. So, what Helen has said, high schools always last to get done, or the first to get done, from the direction going. But we have to figure out how we're going to make it last, make it viable. And I think this is the best way to do that, revision and having with us develop a plan. So we're working good for it. This makes sense, I think, from my perspective.
So if I hear you right, it's like, if we think about a capital plan, the most important thing right now is the high school. What are we gonna do at the high school? These are specific recommendations for what to do at the high school, and once we address that, we can sort of back up and say, okay, then what?
It's, the high school was chosen specifically because A, it's the largest building, and B, it's one of the oldest. So the most opportunities for improvement are there. And the strategies that have been presented today, there's no reason why they can't be spread across the other buildings, most of which are already in better shape with LED lighting and with lighting sensors. But the next steps line, there's no reason those strategies can't be implemented for if the rest of the buildings.
Especially the ones that are educational for kids and are cost effective, super cost effective.
So we should be looking at this and the capital plans.
Yeah.
Essentially. Yeah, okay. Go.
And remember, it's all based on the life cycle, right? Where look at it through the lens of best practices. We're trying to identify best practices that we can use district-wide, and the high school is our power. That's the best analogy that I.
No, that's a good way to be honest, yeah, that's perfect. I understand it. That's it for me.
Thank you. And I just want to appreciate all those who raised the turf question and concern. I share the concerns about turf and toxicity and adding turf to our landscape. And so just something to think about as we're moving forward in our other areas of improvement also. Any other questions? Comments, contributions?
Just a comment, but I think the first time we had a chance to look at this was
previous facilities committee meeting, and but one of the things that struck me was the educational opportunities, thinking about our PBL students, and how we synergize the PBL experience into the general education experience and looking at fair shares as well, to just try to understand and, well, actually not to understand, but to just, I think, bring and highlight the fact that there's I see some of those as being immediate as well, right? So don't know if there's any planning. I didn't ask this question in advance, but planning around what that looks like using this implementation strategy, I think, is something that in terms of immediate, right, that's something that would need to be set up before we go back to school and all this, right? So just looking at this point, we won't have an opportunity to see anything maybe as a board, but I'm just saying that the explicit information that's shared here is like something that we need to do in 2025, which, whatever that looks like, I'm definitely interested in. And I think for sure, the opportunities are there for us for what I think we want for the 21st century learning experiences. And so I'm very much so encouraged by that. I manage facilities every day, but not with kids in them. So I'm really keen on what happens, not necessarily love the implementation aspect of that. I can talk about that till I'm blue in the face, but absolutely want to just use the privilege in the moment to just highlight, I think, how important that aspect actually is. And there's an update that the board can get at any point on what we're doing in that space. That'll be, at least for me, I'd like to see that.
I think it's good. That's why Dr. Philly is here, and then Mrs. Savage as she transitions in. We have that whole department of innovation, right?
Yeah.
And to your point, it's just us being proactive in terms of doing a crosswalk to connect where can this fit in our scope and sequence curriculum, just across contents, right?
Yeah.
And just really be intentional around how we plan out those operations. And to your point, and I always mess with Zachary to an extent, but when I say uncharted, I really mean it. Like this is all new for us, right? And I think it's just a great opportunity for us to take this as far as we can go, to really make it meaningful. So we'll definitely have some more robust conversations as a team with how we can make those connections, because we don't plan it out, it doesn't happen, right? And then we have missed opportunities. So, and we don't want that. So we can definitely tee that up. I'm not going to say that's going to be a tomorrow thing, but as we move forward, we'll be moving forward with that kind of philosophical piece as an objective.
Yeah, and then just thinking about the timing, right? Like if it's a 2025 thing for the school year, 2025 implementation, installing the lane switches, that can happen like at any point and necessarily have an impact, right, in a way. But if it comes to like educational programming, I think it makes sense to happen over the summer, so we've got it ready for August.
Yeah.
And this isn't just me saying this at Cheltenham, so the folks at Eastern have heard this from me multiple times as well, because it's the same thing. They have summer, opportunities to have folks who are in the electrical program literally do electrical work at the school over the summer, right? Not just to make money, but the Eastern Center for Arts and Technology. Yeah. So they hear it from me too, just in terms of how the sustainability around we're using those real world experiences and what we're doing in the workspace to also kind of guide us in the educational space. So,
and even like when we think about the composting, right? We're doing this whole hydroponic piece over next door, and just trying to figure out we got to figure out how do we connect all of that. So it's a very unique opportunity. So yeah, we will definitely keep you guys posted as a board with how that evolves.
thank you.
Thank you. I also especially love that venue. It's 11 by 17 that I can like
So
take
they
my
have by
notes
11.
right on, instead of that, but, and again, thank you for the work, the presentation and like the deep dive here. You mentioned a couple of times when you talked about, the beauty, the health and happiness and, like the soft stuff and how, this might not fit in, it doesn't seem obvious at first.
Right.
There was one person, I love that part of it, and I do think I see the value in it just as much as the rest of it. I know that that doesn't have the same immediate, you switch the LEDs and the light switches and you see the cost savings, but when we are in beautiful places, we are happier people. And if you're in a classroom and looking out and seeing fun things, hearing, it's all of the senses. And I do think that it makes a big difference. And I know for me, like if I'm in my garden and I can see my flowers and I see my butterflies, I'm a happier person. So I think our students, our staff are, the potential there is great. And I think that it is not, maybe it's the soft part, but I think it's just as important. So I would say thank you. And I think I just want to clarify, kind of going back to this conversation about the native plantings and replace. When I read this, establish plantings and reduce the quantity of turf, I'm reading that as like that patch of grass out there.
Yes.
Right. We're not,
Yeah.
this turf doesn't mean artificial turf. It means
Correct.
anywhere around the high school where we have these large swaths of grass that are not playing fields, that are not, what else would you need grass for? Nothing. It's a silly American
Long
construct that we have
patches.
grass. So reading it as that, I don't think that it's necessarily in conflict with our other plans, other than we need to make a decision on what kind of surface we want to use in that plan. So I don't as one person, I don't see them they're not in conflict per se. They're just talking about different things.
I think the issue is it's all in the word that we use, and we shorten artificial turf to the word turf.
Right.
And we shorten turf grass to grass.
Right. So I just wanted to clarify that I was reading that because that's how I read it. And I love that because we don't need that everywhere. And, having everything that's native.
There's an ecological burden to keeping that, and there's a financial burden to keeping that.
And it's not you don't look at that and say, oh, wow, that's beautiful. At least most people don't. Maybe if you're a golfer, you do. I don't know. But if you saw beautiful flowers and plants then you might.
Right, which is natural grasses.
Exactly, or just natural grasses,
Yeah.
absolutely. So thank you for that. That was my long way of saying thank you. And I think Charles kind of got to what that's what I was going to say about the crossover with our students. And, not just PBL, but that's like obviously a great place for us to start because that's the kind of work that they do already in the projects that they work on. So just excited to see what that could look like in terms of student involvement. And we have lots of clubs where you already have groups of students that, whether it's environmental, we have our women in science and engineering. Like we already, we have a lot of places where I think we already have that obvious group of students that would have the buy-in. And I think we'd have a lot of faculty and staff that would be excited about some of these things too.
I've seen some stacked successes when you're PBL based and you're working on a project and you have the photography people come in and memorialize what's happening to be able to tell the story to others. There may be some synergies there.
Absolutely. And a big part of the way that PBL is done is that it's not just for you in that class. Your end result is something to be shared with the world publicly to teach others. So, thank you.
Thank you. One other thing that I just wanted to echo is obviously I love the idea of our kids being really involved and being a huge piece of the puzzle for our sustainability efforts. And I love that we're starting at the high school because I think that our kids at the high school can be leaders in the rest of the district and can help create sort of a bridge between a lot of our other schools, and go and do work with our elementary schools, setting up, pollinator gardens elsewhere in the district. So it feels like an actual launching point to start. And I do think that the opportunities are endless. Our kids are motivated for these kinds of changes, and they know that it's kind of essential that we make these changes. So anything else?
This request may have been made before, but just from a policy perspective, if you all have any best practices that you all have come by, it may not fall, if it falls within the scope of your work, it may not fall within your scope. But when I think about us as a board, that's where I see us a major part, especially when Dan asks about like how often Mr. Schultz asked about how often should reviews happen,
Right.
things like that. Policy is a place where we can ensure that happens, and we talk about equity. That's how it resonates with me in terms of a role for the board. So we have some upcoming conversations as a district around sustainability, and so if there's any resources
Yeah, I
that can
mean,
be shared.
to, we do a lot of policy work with a lot of different organizations that help make their policies more green and sustainable. We'd be happy to look at some of yours. And it could be a very light look, or it can be very deep, if that's what you're referring to. You're talking about purchasing policies, cleaning policies, everything, operations maintenance policies.
Yeah, I mean, I'll plus some, we've been talking about a sustainability policy. And so we will probably cover some of those others. But I think we're even in a place of where to start and and things like that. So that's what my first question was, if it falls within the school. Now, I don't know if it does.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Drew would know off the top of his head, and to be honest, he's so skilled with this.
Yeah.
And specifically that, let's set up a conversation between you and him.
I
Much better
mean,
than mine.
that's appropriate and the best next step, yeah.
But you have, the facility committee.
Yeah.
So we can let Mr. Holman take the lead to
Okay,
facilitate that.
And facilitate, yeah, absolutely.
that'd be great.
Wonderful. Do we want to check the Zoom room to see, is there anyone in there and are there any questions?
You sharing yours?
There are no-
Right.
There are no questions.
No questions.
First place, I would say look for a lot of policies, is you look at the B corporation community. That's for benefit corporation, and you look at the just label community. And Drew can provide information in depth on both of those.
B, the letter B
B.
or B, E?
Okay, so like business wise, you've got C corporations, S corporations, and you've got E corporations for benefit. So you look at organizations like Method Cleaning Products, King Arthur Flour, Dansco Shoes. Who else are big? Newly Teas. There's, I don't know, maybe 10,000.
Okay.
Just anytime you're walking through the grocery store, you'll see a little B in a circle. That tells you that they looked hard and were scored and transparent about how they did.
Great.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Promise that's right. Well, for this committee.
Sounds good.
Okay. So thank you for the nice meeting.
Wonderful. Thank
Thank you.
you very much. I think we're ready. I'd like a motion. Or do you have other? Who's good? Oh, I'm sorry. Are you good? Okay. Yeah, I was like, okay. Can we have a motion?
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
We, I, adjourn.